Does your client fully understand that he would be appearing via Zoom and not be present in the courtroom?
He does.
Did you obtain a waiver, whether verbal or written?
I obtained a verbal waiver. Mr. Moniak, you do not object. You waive your physical presence in court in order to deal with this case today?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
How did you obtain that waiver? Well, we just did it on the record. Sir, I'm sorry, Mr. Sharp. Do you waive an original signature on the indictment and authorize the court to sign the indictment on your behalf?
So waived.
Mr. Moniak, have you discussed today's proceedings with your attorney?
Yes, sir.
Has your attorney explained to you that you have a right to be physically present in the courtroom?
Yes, sir.
Do you waive your right to be physically present in the courtroom?
Yes, sir.
Do you waive an original signature on the indictment and authorize the court to sign the indictment on your behalf?
Yes, sir.
Does the state waive an original signature on the indictment and authorize the court to sign on its behalf?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, we may proceed then, please. Is this a negotiated plea?
Yes, Judge.
It is.
All right, please proceed.
Thank you, Judge. Mr. Moniak, please state your true, correct, and legal name.
Thomas Michael Moniak.
Are you at this time taking or under the influence of any alcohol, drugs, or medicine?
Medicines for my heart and blood pressure medications. That's all.
Okay. And which medications are you taking?
Oh, Lord. I have about 18 different ones. Do you want me to go through a few of them?
No.
I think I can jump in here and say that Mr. Moniak has serious medical issues, including problems with his kidneys, blood pressure, and other issues. But none of those medications that he takes would have any adverse effect on his ability to understand the proceedings today. Correct, Mr. Moniak?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you. How old are you?
61.
And how far have you gone in school?
Graduated from high school.
Did you get a high school diploma?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you able to read, write, and understand English?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that the state has elected to downgrade your robbery to a disorderly conduct?
Yes, ma'am.
And you also know that you're being charged with simple battery?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so you're facing 2 misdemeanors. You understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you understand that you have the right to plead either guilty or not guilty to these charges?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that if you plead not guilty or remain silent, you may receive a jury trial?
Yes, ma'am. I understand.
Have you had enough time to speak with your attorney, Mr. Shard, about all the facts and circumstances known to you regarding the charges in this indictment?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you all also talk about potential defenses?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you need more time to discuss the case with your attorney?
No, ma'am.
Are you satisfied with his services?
Absolutely.
Do you waive formal reading of the indictment?
Yes, ma'am.
So waived. So waived.
Do you waive any and all defects in the indictment, including with respect to your name?
So waived.
Wait.
Thank you. Were you arrested on these charges?
Yes, ma'am.
The state is unaware of any outstanding warrants related to these charges. Do you or your attorney know of any?
No, ma'am.
Has your attorney, excuse me, has your attorney advised you as to the minimum and maximum sentence for each charge you're pleading to?
Yes, ma'am.
Both charges are misdemeanors, punishable up to 12 months in jail. You understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that this is a negotiated plea of guilty?
Yes, ma'am.
That means that the state will recommend to the court a sentence of 12 months probation for each case to run consecutively. That means that you'll have a total of 24 months probation.
Yes.
Ms. Schnall, the agreement we had was suspended.
Okay, I'm sorry. So suspended probation.
It would be a suspended sentence, Mr. Moniak.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So 24 months suspended.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Do you understand that the court does not have to accept this recommendation?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Do you understand that the court can impose any sentence authorized by law?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that if you're currently on probation or parole, your probation or parole may be revoked based on you entering a plea of guilty today?
I'm not, though.
You're not what?
No, I'm probation or parole.
Okay, thank you. But do you understand that if you were,
Yes,
that
ma'am.
your probation would be impacted? Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that if you're placed on probation of any kind, you cannot violate any criminal laws of any governmental units or any special conditions of probation without being subject to having the balance revoked?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that if you're not a United States citizen, a guilty plea conviction will affect your immigration status?
Yes, ma'am. I'm a U.S. citizen.
Thank you. Do
Yes,
you
ma'am.
understand? Do you understand that there may be other adverse or unfavorable consequences as a result of this guilty plea conviction?
No, ma'am.
Okay, I'll explain it to you. So,
Please.
so these two misdemeanors will be part of your criminal history.
Yes, ma'am.
If you apply for a job in the future, or you apply for, you try to get a gun, or any kind of circumstance where somebody might run your criminal history, these misdemeanors will show up.
Yes, ma'am.
And so, you pleading guilty to them may impact some of your rights. It may not, since they're misdemeanors.
Yes,
But
ma'am.
chance, so I tell you that.
I understand now.
Okay, so I'll go over some of your rights that could be impacted.
Yes, ma'am.
The right to vote, the right to hold public office, the right to serve on a jury, the right to obtain a passport, the right to receive, possess, or transport a firearm, or the ability to obtain employment. You understand these rights?
Yes, ma'am.
And you understand how they might be impacted?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that you're waived any and all defenses, including with respect to your mental health, by entering a plea of guilty?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that you're giving up certain rights you would have had at a trial?
Yes, ma'am.
Those rights include the right to a trial by jury, the right to remain silent, the right to confront witnesses,
Yes,
the-
ma'am.
the right to the assistance of counsel, the right to the presumption of innocence, the right to testify, the right to subpoena witnesses, the right to have the charges against you proved beyond a reasonable doubt, and the right to appeal if convicted of these charges after a trial. You understand these rights?
Yes, ma'am.
And you understand that you've given them up by pleading guilty today?
Yes, ma'am.
Has anyone forced, threatened, or promised you anything to get you to enter into a guilty plea?
No, ma'am.
Is it your decision to waive these rights and enter a guilty plea because you are in fact guilty?
Can I hear that one more time? I'm sorry.
We're gonna ask if Judge, if you would accept the offered plea, which means that he's accepting responsibility, and he feels that there's evidence sufficient to support a guilty plea, but he's not admitting guilt, and I'll explain when it's my turn to talk our
That's
reasoning.
fine. You may proceed.
Okay.
Okay, so Mr. Moniak, are you pleading guilty because you have decided that it's in your best interest to do so?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you aware that even if you do not admit guilt, this is still a plea of guilty and places you in the same position as if you were convicted by a jury after a trial?
Yes, ma'am.
How do you plead to the charges of simple battery and disorderly conduct in indictment number 19 SC 171524?
Guilty.
Under the offered case, Mr. Monier.
Under the offer case. Yes, I'm sorry.
Is this guilty plea freely and voluntarily given with full knowledge of the charges against you?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that you may only have a limited right to appeal this guilty plea conviction?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that you only have 4 years for a felony and 12 months for a misdemeanor to file a habeas corpus petition challenging whether this plea was voluntary?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Okay, the state notes that Mr. Moniak has 3 prior felony convictions. They are old. He has 2 in 2007. One is a VGCSA out of Cobb, and one is a theft by receiving out of Cherokee. And he has one from 2014 out of Fulton for possession of cocaine. Had this case gone to trial, the state would have shown that in 2019, Mr. Moniak went into a racetrack in Fulton County, Georgia, and while he was there, he told the attendant on the scene to give him money. When she refused, he went behind the counter and struck her in the arm. A security guard on the scene was able to apprehend Mr. Moniak and detain him until police arrived. And when police arrived, he was arrested and charged accordingly. He was originally charged with robbery and simple battery. However, the defense has provided the state with medical documentation to suggest that Mr. Moniak may have been suffering from a health emergency when he committed these crimes. So the state has elected to reduce the robbery to a disorderly conduct.
And the recommendation, please, Ms. Chenault.
Yes, Judge. 24 months of probation suspended.
All right, how long was Mr. Moniak in jail, Ms. Woods, please?
Second judge.
You know, she's the only one with 2 pictures up here. Did y'all notice that? Ms. Woods?
I'm sorry, Judge.
No, we got her live.
Wait, you've got 2 pictures.
It's because because we don't have the capabilities here at Fulton County to have video and
You
audio.
don't need to explain it to me. I was just giving you a hard time.
No.
Tell me how long he's been in jail, please.
Judge, hold on. He served on the, if I'm looking correctly, he was in and out in the same day.
So, Judge, just to give a little background here about what was going on with Mr. Moniak. Mr. Moniak has several severe health issues, including hepatitis and kidney issues. His kidney issues lead to, Mr. Moniak, what's the name of the actual disease? Is it?
Oh, my kidneys are failing now. I have kidney disease, and my kidneys had shut down. I spent 8 days in the hospital before they took me to jail, and they really didn't want to keep me in the jail because I was so sick.
All right, so Mr. Moniak, let me take over. So he has, I think it's ketoacidosis, but it might be another term, but he has kidney failure, which causes ammonia to build up in his blood, which leads to disorientation and confusion. I had him speak to Dr. Norman, and Dr. Norman evaluated him for criminal responsibility. And Dr. Norman was of the opinion in a report in a talk with me that it was definitely a possibility that he was just completely confused when this happened. But when he went to Grady, the police took him to Grady. They didn't do an ammonia level check, so we couldn't say for certain. But I also looked at the video camera, and Mr. Moniak gave the appearance of someone who was just like beyond extremely intoxicated and lethargic. And I don't think he was drinking that day. I think that he was struggling with the ammonia levels in his blood, which led to confusion. And I think what happened is he gave his card to the lady in an attempt to obtain money, like some sort of withdrawal. And when she wouldn't give him money, that led to the miscommunication and confusion on his behalf, which obviously the employees didn't realize he was confused. They thought he was probably high and a threat, but that's our version of what happened. So we'd ask that you accept this recommendation, Judge.
Sir, do you understand the nature of the charges against you?
Yes, sir.
You understand all the rights you give up by entering this plea?
Yes, sir.
Are you entering this plea freely and voluntarily?
Yes, sir.
You're pleading guilty because you believe it's in your best interest to plead guilty.
Yes, sir.
The court finds that the defendant is competent to enter the plea, that the plea is voluntary and freely entered with full knowledge of all the rights that he's voluntarily waiving. I find there is a factual basis. I will accept the plea and sentence as enunciated by the state, agreed to by the defense, which is 12 months probation on each count to run consecutive suspended.
Yes, sir.
All right, good luck to you, sir.
Thank you, Judge.
All right, you may be excused from the Zoom, okay?
Thank you, sir.
All right, let's take Forbes.
Okay,
Max?
Mr. Monier,
He's gone.
he's gone. Our next case is Mr. Forbes. Is there anyone else that should be in the waiting room, Mr. Knott or Mr. Sharp, in regards to this case?
None from the state. The victim is not going to be present today.
all right, awesome.
Ms. Clark, can you tell me if Jay Smith is someone from your office? Because they've been here since early this morning.
Now, we do have an assistant chief named James Smith, but I haven't sent him a link, so I'm not sure if that's him.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Forbes, are you here? We need to be able to see you. Clear.
Yes, ma'am, I'm here.
All right, there we go.
All right, thank you.
Hey, Raekwon.
What's up, Miss
Judge,
Max?
Position
Hey.
2 and 3 on your calendar. State of Georgia versus Raycon Forbes, 19 SC 170513 and 19 SC 172473.
Is this a negotiated plea?
Yes,
It
Judge.
is, I don't need a breakout room. I just need to quickly say something to Raekwon. Raekwon,
Yes, sir.
do you remember when I talked to you about schooling? And you said you finished your school. The state is asking as part of this agreement that you do some community service. Okay.
All
All right. Can I have a breakout room, I guess, Ms. Woods, just for a second?
We can't hear you, Ms. Wood.
Sorry, you should be able to join it. Let me see. I'll put you in one if you can't. Hold on. Forbes. Start you in here. Mr. Shard, are you in there?
I'm still with you.
Well, it should have given you permission to go to the breakout room.
Okay, I got you.
Okay, all right.
gives you a little break. Is it still warm?
Judge,
Yes, ma'am.
hi.
I just wanted to make sure my court reporter's sausage, egg, and biscuit was still warm. I was being thoughtful. Y'all gonna miss me come July 1. Tell him to come on, April.
Yes, sir. Let's go.
What'd you say?
Gotta move.
You?
Yeah,
You gotta go with me.
you gotta let them know, like, man, don't move my
Who do I need to talk to?
Captain Taylor or somebody, let them know don't move.
Who's, I just did a favor for somebody, Captain Carter, Captain Major.
Judge, they should be coming now.
All right, we're back.
Have a deal?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, I don't see your client.
He's
There he is, okay. All right, so Mr. Forbes,
Yes, sir.
please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you'll give before this court is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir.
You may lower your hand. Have you discussed today's proceeding? I'm sorry, Mr. Sharp. Have you discussed
Yes.
today's proceedings with your client?
yes, I have.
Does your client fully understand that he would be appearing via Zoom and not be present in the courtroom?
Yes,
Did you obtain a waiver, whether verbal or written?
I obtained a verbal waiver.
How did you obtain that waiver?
Speaking to him prior to this court date.
Do you waive an original signature on the indictment and authorize the court to sign the indictment on your behalf?
Yes, I do.
Do you waive, let's see, what's here, Mr. Forbes? Have you discussed today's proceedings with your attorney?
Yes, sir.
Has your attorney explained to you that you have a right to be physically present in the courtroom?
Yes, sir.
Do you waive your right to be physically present in the courtroom?
Yes, sir.
Do you waive an original signature on the indictment and authorize the court to sign the indictment on your behalf?
Yes, Mr. Schwall'S, sir.
All right. Does the state waive an original signature on the indictment and authorize the court to sign on its behalf?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, please proceed.
Thank you, Judge. Mr. Forbes, please state your true, correct, and legal name.
Raekwon Shadiq Forbes.
Can you spell your middle name, please?
Shaddik. D as in dog.
Thank you. Are you at this time taking or under the influence of any alcohol, drugs, or medicine?
No, ma'am.
Is there any medication that you normally take that you haven't been given today?
No.
How old are you?
23.
How far have you gone to school?
12th grade.
Did you
I
graduate?
graduated. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Are you able to read, write, and understand English?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so you have two cases here. Your first one is 19 SC 170513. That is an aggravated assault that's being reduced to
disorderly.
Yes, one count of pointing a pistol and one count of disorderly conduct.
Mm.
And in your case, 19 SC 172473. We are dropping the handgun charge and proceeding with a misdemeanor marijuana charge. You understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
So you're facing 3 misdemeanors.
Okay.
Okay. Do you understand that you have the right to plead either guilty or not guilty to these charges?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that if you plead not guilty or remain silent, you may receive a jury trial?
Yes, ma'am.
Raekwon, hold the camera still and speak clearly because we can't
Oh, I
completely.
said yes.
Thank you. Have you had enough time to speak with your attorney, Mr. Shard, about all the facts and circumstances known to you regarding the circumstances in both indictments?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Do you need more time to discuss the case with your attorney?
No. I mean, can I do the break room? Can I talk to him real quick?
Sure. I don't think I should be in there. Somebody.
Ms. Chenault? Hello? Hey, Ms. Chenault?
Yes.
While they're in the breakout room, can you please go over what charges are being dismissed and reduced
Why'd you put me back?
in both indictments?
Oh, I did
Yes.
something bad. What did I do? I don't have it. One second.
So in position 2,
Mhm.
count 1 is being reduced to misdemeanor pointing a pistol at a person. I'm sorry, that's the wrong one. Is this? Let me make sure I got the numbers right. Okay, that's right. Okay, so yes, in position number 2, count 1 is being reduced to pointing a pistol at a person, and let me get that code.
Max, you back?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Actually, no, it wasn't pointing a pistol at a person. It was having a handgun without and being under 18.
Okay, so count 1 is being reduced to what again?
I'm gonna look up the code section.
Oh, okay.
Ms. Chenault, if it was having a handgun under 18,
Yeah,
that
that
would
one.
have to be under the marijuana case. That I think that's what
I
we were
keep
talking.
getting them confused. I'm sorry.
The marijuana case is from 2017, where Mr. Forbes, you were 17 at that point, correct?
2017.
Yeah.
I was 18, right?
Oh no.
I was 20. I was
Yeah.
20.
So he was never under 18.
Okay.
right?
No, I just keep getting 2 cases confused.
Oh, yeah.
So count 1 is being reduced to pointing a pistol at another person. That's OCGA 16-11-102.
Okay,
No.
count,
Count 2 will be no prize,
okay,
and count 3 will be no prize.
okay. And then on position 3,
On position 3, count 1 will be reduced to possession of marijuana less than an ounce, misdemeanor. And I'll get that code in a second. Count 2 will be no prize. That'll be the only one. It'll be no process, count 2. Count 3, 4, and 5 are misdemeanors.
Okey dokey. Thank you.
Okay. So, Mr. Forbes, I'm gonna go over again all the counts so that we're both clear, everybody's clear. For, position number 2, your case number 19 SC 170513, you're being charged with misdemeanor pointing a pistol at a person and possession of marijuana. I'm sorry, that's the only charge on that case. The other 2 charges are non-pros. And then in case number 19 SC 172473, you're being charged with misdemeanor possession of marijuana, obstruction of a law enforcement officer, defective brake lights or turn signal, and instruction permits licenses. Do you understand those charges?
So,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr.
I do have a
Forbes,
license.
basically what we're saying is on the new case, the aggravated assault case that's being reduced to a misdemeanor, which is pointing a pistol, and all the other felonies are being dismissed. On
Okay.
the older case, the marijuana case, the felony marijuana is being reduced to a misdemeanor marijuana. The felony gun charge is being dismissed, and the other 3 misdemeanors are staying the way they are, okay?
All right.
So all felonies on these 2 cases are either being dismissed or reduced to misdemeanors, okay?
All right.
Okay.
And you understand that, Mr. Forbes?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you. Have you had enough time to speak with your attorney, Mr. Shard, about all the facts and circumstances known to you in both these cases?
Yes, ma'am.
And you've had enough time to speak with them?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you satisfied with this service?
Yes, ma'am. Highly.
I didn't understand the last thing.
I said yes, ma'am. Highly.
Okay. Do you waive a formal reading of both indictments?
I don't understand.
Still waived. I'm sorry.
Okay. Do you waive any and all defects in the indictments, including with respect to your name?
So waived.
Were you arrested on these charges?
Yes.
The state is unaware of any outstanding warrants related to these charges. Do you or your attorney know of any?
No, ma'am.
We don't. We do not.
Has your attorney advised you as to the minimum and maximum sentence for each charge you're pleading to?
Yes, ma'am.
So, as we previously mentioned, all the charges are now misdemeanors. They're all punishable up to 12 months in jail. You understand that?
You said 12 months?
Up to 12 months in jail.
Okay.
That's what it carries. Okay.
Oh, what did I just do? Okay. You can hear me?
Yes, we still have you.
Do you understand that this is a negotiated plea of guilty?
Yes, ma'am.
That means that the state will recommend to the court a sentence of 36 months probation, and I will break down which charges get the probation.
Okay.
And I told, just when we're talking about the 36 months, I informed Mr. Forbes that part of our negotiation was if he were to maintain employment and to stay out of trouble for 18 months, we could petition the court to close out the probation at that time. As
Okay,
we discussed.
that's fine.
Okay, remember that, Mr. Forbes, you understand?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
And did you also discuss the 80 hours community service?
we did, and I suggested that he look into Meals on Wheels.
Okay, thank you. So in indictment number 19 SC 170513, pointing a pistol at a person, that'll be 12 months probation. And then in indictment number 19 SC 172473, possession of marijuana less than an ounce, misdemeanor, that'll be 12 months probation to run consecutive with the first case. And count 3, obstruction of a law enforcement officer, that will be 12 months probation to run consecutive with, consecutive with the first case and then the first charge in this indictment. And then counts 4 and 5, 12 months probation to run concurrent with count 3 for a total of 36 months probation.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm. Okay.
Do you understand that the court does not have to accept this recommendation?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that if you're currently on probation or parole, your probation or parole may be revoked based on you entering a plea of guilty today?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that if you're placed on probation of any kind, you cannot violate any criminal laws of any governmental unit or any special conditions of probation without being subject to having the balance revoked?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that you're not allowed to use or possess a firearm while you're on probation?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that if you're not a United States citizen, a guilty plea conviction may affect your immigration status?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that there may be other adverse or unfavorable consequences as a result of your guilty plea conviction?
Yes, ma'am.
For example, your guilty plea may affect your right to vote, the right to hold public office, the right to serve on a jury, the right to obtain a passport, the right to receive, possess, or transport a firearm, or the ability to obtain employment. You understand these rights?
Yes, ma'am.
And you understand that they may be impacted by you pleading guilty.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that you waive any and all defenses, including with respect to your mental health, by entering a plea of guilty?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that you're giving up certain rights you would have had at a trial?
Yes, ma'am.
Those rights include the right to a trial by jury, the right to remain silent, the right to confront witnesses, the right to the assistance of counsel, the right to the presumption of innocence, the right to testify, the right to subpoena witnesses, the right to have the charges against you proved beyond a reasonable doubt, and the right to appeal if convicted of these charges after a trial. You understand these rights?
Yes, ma'am.
And you understand that you're giving them up by pleading guilty today.
Yes, ma'am.
Has anyone forced, threatened, or promised you anything to get you to enter into a guilty plea?
No, ma'am.
Is your decision to waive these rights and enter a guilty plea because you are in fact guilty?
Just for the record, Mr. Forbes is entering a guilty plea on the 19 SC 172973 case. After discussing things with him, we would ask that the court accept an offered plea on the 19 SC 170513 case. We do believe, based on the state reducing it to a misdemeanor, that it would be in his best interest to plead guilty, but we did have a pending immunity motion on that case.
Okay. So for indictment number 19 SC 170513, how do you plead, Mr. Forbes?
And Mr. Forbes, this is where, based on the discussion, you would say guilty under the Alford case.
Mhm. Yes,
Okay,
yes,
you got
yes,
it
under
now.
the offer case, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
And for indictment number 19 SC 172473, how do you plead?
This is
This is where we discussed you pleading guilty.
Yeah, I plead guilty on that. I thought it was both on offer. Yeah, I plead guilty on that.
Okay. Are these guilty pleas freely and voluntarily given with full knowledge of the charges against you?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that you may only have a limited right to appeal this guilty plea conviction?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that you only have 4 years from today for a felony and 12 months from today for a misdemeanor to file a habeas corpus petition challenging whether these pleas were voluntary?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Judge, the state notes that Mr. Forbes has no prior felony convictions. However, had this case gone to trial, the state would have shown that in 19 SC 170513, police were called to 3630 Marketplace Boulevard in Fulton County, Georgia on March 21st, 2019 in reference to an altercation. When they arrived, they learned that the defendant, Mr. Forbes, was working as a chef at a restaurant located at that address. He became engaged in a verbal altercation with some customers who were also at that restaurant. The argument eventually spilled outside. During that altercation, Mr. Forbes did pull a weapon on the victim in this case, Mr. Michael Hendricks. When police arrived, they were able to view the surveillance footage and saw what looked like the defendant pointing a handgun at Mr. Hendricks. So Mr. Forbes was arrested and charged accordingly. And in indictment number 19 SC 172473, police were called to a location in Fulton County, Georgia, in reference to a burglar alarm going off. When they arrived, the homeowner realized that it was really her son, Mr. Forbes. He was coming in and out of the home. But out of caution, the police had already detained Mr. Forbes and was investigating the burglar alarm going off. During his detainment, he did attempt to run away from police. He was eventually apprehended. The police did find a handgun and some marijuana in the backpack that he was carrying. Mr. Forbes was then arrested and charged accordingly. Nothing further from the state.
All right, the recommendations, please.
Yes, Judge. The state's recommendation is 36 months probation, which I already broke down previously. We also agreed that Mr. Forbes would complete 80 hours of community service.
Mr. Sharp, you wanted to petition the court later?
Yes, Judge. Just briefly, Judge, Mr. Forbes, he's actually the head chef or one of the head chefs at a Japanese steakhouse, and that's where one of these incidents occurred. I obtained the video. I think the police arrived with Mr. Forbes holding the gun, I think actually, but I obtained the video, and it shows a large group, a large party that, in my opinion, caused problems with the employees, and then it spilled into the back, and they were surrounding one of the employees, and then Mr. Forbes came and intervened and pulled a gun. I say that to say, Judge, that there's mitigating circumstances, and that's why it was reduced to a misdemeanor. But also to say that Mr. Forbes, to his credit, is someone who's actually graduated high school and obtained some marketable skills. Now, obviously, things have been on hold at the restaurant since this coronavirus, but he'll be going back to work at that restaurant, and he's a prized employee at that restaurant. So he's doing well for himself, and we would just ask, and he knows in the other case that he shouldn't have had the marijuana, and so that's really the benefit of him, is that other case is getting reduced as well. But we would ask that if he's doing what he's supposed to do after 18 months and still working and staying out of trouble, that he be allowed to petition the court to get off the probation.
All right, that certainly will be allowed. Sir, do you understand the nature of the charges against you?
Yes, sir.
Do you understand all the rights you give up by entering this plea?
Yes, sir.
And you're entering this plea freely and voluntarily?
Yes, ma'am. Sir.
And you're giving up all those rights freely and voluntarily, knowingly and intelligently?
Yes, sir.
Is counsel satisfied that your client is competent in understanding that the plea is voluntary with full knowledge of all the rights that he's waiving and that there's a factual basis?
Yes, Your Honor.
I find the defendant's competent to enter the plea. I find the plea is entered freely and voluntarily with full knowledge of all the rights that he's waiving. I find there is a factual basis. I will sentence as enunciated by the state and agreed to by the defense.
One other issue, Judge, that just dawned on me when I was talking earlier is I would ask that you would consider waiving the fees and fines, because he is someone who's been affected by the coronavirus, and he really doesn't have an income coming in right now.
I certainly understand. That's fine. So ordered.
Thank you, Judge.
All right, good luck to you, sir.
A couple of things.
Thanks.
Miss Woods, hold on, Raekwon. Raekwon, hold on. Miss Woods, how?
Hold. Couple of things. Ms. Chanel, I know you identified 80 hours of community service. Are we putting these 80 hours on one case? Are we dividing 40 and 40? What are we doing with that? And then to answer your question, start in regards to misdemeanor probation. I'm trying to get in touch with them. So please make sure that I can get in touch, either you or myself, with Mr. Forbes, so that we can get him signed up. Misdemeanor probation was supposed to be on, and I'm actually waiting for them to respond. So we may do a Zoom later and have probation to sign.
Oh, okay, so Mr. Forbes, do you understand that at some point you're gonna have to sign up for this probation? So I have a good number for you and you have a good number for me, but if that changes, you need to let me know if your number changes or something, because we'll have to reach out to you to get you signed up for this probation.
Yeah, it's the same number.
Okay, but I'm saying if it does change in the future, you need to make
Okay.
sure you let me know.
I got you.
Okay.
And this will be done before the close of business today, Mr. Forbes.
Okay.
Oh, okay, okay.
So we're gonna come back on the Zoom.
I'm not sure. Probably so. I'll call you back on your phone to give you further instructions.
All right.
And Ms. Woods, I guess we can ask Mr. Forbes how he prefers to break down the probation, if he would prefer to do 40 hours for each case, or if he wants to get it all done on the first probation, since he has to petition.
If we could put it all 80 on the first case, that would be better, because I think he's going to try to knock a lot of it out during this Corona situation.
Okay, that would be fine.
Right, Mr. Forbes?
Thank you.
All right, thank you. I think next is Mr. Murray and Mr. Sparks.
I'm going down here.
Yes, sir. You can go.
Or
All
you
right.
can
Thank
have
you.
a good, be in touch.
Okay, thanks.
Mhm. Let's see.
We need Ms. Clark.
Mr. Mary already pled, Judge.
Mr. Murray did, so it's just Mr. Sparks.
Yes, Judge.
Is it a negotiated plea?
Yes, it is.
Okay, is Miss Singleton here?
Yes, Your Honor.
Good morning. Good morning. How are
I
you?
don't know why my picture is a Betty Boop. I gotta fix that, Your Honor, but I am here. Good morning.
Good morning. I hope things are well. How's my lawyer doing?
He's doing well, Your Honor. He is doing well.
What's the status of things with him? He's a 3L?
Yes, he's the 3L in the fall. He just finished up. And he's just waiting for school. He'll be taking a summer class.
All right, well, wish him well for me, okay?
I will. Thank you, Your Honor.
Very proud of him. He was my intern.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes,
your client, do you know what name he's using under his?
it should be Michael Sparks. Do
No,
you see Julie Smith?
I see a J. Smith. Do you
Yeah,
think that's?
that must be him. Yeah.
Okay.
We tried to get it to change to Michael Sparks, but I guess it didn't.
Okay, let's
Is
see.
J.A.Y. Smith? Is it J. Smith, also known as Michael Sparks?
Yeah. Hold on. Hold on. He's just in the other room. Let me go make sure it's
Hold
working.
Mr. Smith or Miss Smith, who am I speaking to? Hello?
Ms. Holmes was going to the other room to see.
There he is.
Is this Mr. Sparks?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing good. You?
Good. Judge, this is position 4, State of Georgia versus Michael Sparks, 19 SC 170064. And we're just
Ms.
waiting.
Holmes is the defense attorney?
We're waiting on Ms. Holmes.
I'm here.
Okay, all
Ms.
right.
Singleton, what is your involvement, please?
Your Honor, I've been supervising Michael since he was released on bond,
And
2019.
negotiated plea?
Say again, Your Honor?
Is this a negotiated plea?
Yes, it is, Your Honor.
I believe so.
Ms. Singleton, do you have anything to add one way or the other?
Your Honor, only that, my understanding of it, the plea is probation. And so because he's 16 years old, I will have to supervise him for about 2 months until he turns 17. So we just need to make sure that that's part of the sentence, that he'll be under my supervision and that he will receive credit towards his Department of Corrections probation for the time that he's under my supervision after he takes this plea. I have spoken with their legal department several years ago and they had agreed to that as long as it's written on the plea. But Michael has been great under supervision. I've never had a violation from him and he has been no problem at all. He has strong family support, Your Honor, very strong family support.
I want you to understand, Mr. Sparks, how important Ms. Singleton's word is to this court. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
And you don't want her coming into this court and saying anything bad about you. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's proceed with the negotiated plea. And Ms. Singleton's words are very effective and important. Please proceed. All right, I will start. Mr. Sparks, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you'll give before this court will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God.
Yes, sir.
You may lower your hand. Counsel, have you discussed today's proceedings with your client?
Yes, I have.
Does your client fully understand that he would be appearing via Zoom and not be present in the courtroom?
Yes, Your Honor.
Did you obtain a waiver, whether verbal or written?
Verbal.
How did you obtain that waiver?
This morning in person.
Do you waive an original signature on the indictment and authorize the court to sign the indictment on your behalf?
Yes.
All right, Mr. Sparks, have
Yes,
you
sir.
discussed today's proceedings with your attorney?
Yes, sir.
Has your attorney explained to you that you have a right to be physically present in the courtroom?
Yes, sir.
Do you waive your right to be physically present in the courtroom?
Yes, sir.
Do you waive an original signature on the indictment and authorize the court to sign the indictment on your behalf?
Yes, sir.
Does the state waive an original signature on the indictment and authorize the court to sign on its behalf?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, please proceed.
Thank you, Judge. I did just want to announce that the victim is supposed to be here. I'm not sure if she's here yet and waiting to get in, but she
We'll allow
will.
the victim to appear as soon as she gets here, okay?
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
Hey, Ms.
And
Chanel, what's her name? Do you know what her name or what name she's using?
Her name is Sanita Park.
Wait a minute, she might actually be here in the room. Hold on.
Okay.
Sunita, S-U-N-I-T-A?
Yes.
Okay, she's here. I'm bringing her in now.
Okay.
Hold on for a second.
Okay.
Give us just a second.
Okay.
Judge, the victim is present. She's connecting now.
Judge, the victim has indicated that she would like to give a statement, and so would her son. Would you like her to give the statement after the plea or?
She may give a statement now, please.
Yes, Judge.
Ms. Chanel, she's trying to connect.
Okay.
If you want to assist her or Blake wants to assist.
Yes, I'm reaching out to her now. Sorry, Judge. She's her husband's helping her with signing in. She's having some trouble connecting with the audio and video.
Well, thank you for your efforts.
Yes, sir.
Did we lose Miss Singleton? April?
No, Judge, she left to see if she could take care of her picture.
Okay.
She's coming back.
Okay, thank you.
Here is, and here is Sunita. And let's see what we can do here. I may have to pause. Miss Singleton, can we see you?
Not yet. I'm still working on it. I got the one part working.
Sunita, we can't see or hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we need to be able to see you.
How about now?
Yes.
And this is me, and this is my son. He was also present.
All right, how old is your son?
8.
Okay, tell me, Ms. Chenault, the alleged facts in this case.
I'm sorry, could you say that again, sir?
Will you please, I'm talking to the prosecutor, Ms. Chenault. Please tell me the alleged facts.
Yes, Judge. As alleged on May 17th of 2019, the victim, Miss Anita Parks, was in a park in Fulton County located at 2115 Arlington Circle. She was there with her 8-year-old son. While they were there, about 2 minutes after they arrived, Miss Parks was approached by a Black male. The male did put a gun to her head and demanded that she give him everything in her hands. She gave him her car keys. The male then hopped into her car with another Black male on the scene, and they drove off. When police arrived and took Miss Parks' statement, they did report the car as stolen. The car was picked up by a license plate reader not too long after they put the car on a system. Police began to chase the car. Eventually, the car pulled into an apartment complex near the Campbellton Road area. 5 Black males jumped out of the car and began running into the woods around the community. Mr. Sparks was one of those males. He was later apprehended on the scene. Police did find Mr. Sparks' cell phone in the front of the car in the cup holder. 2 of the suspects who were also apprehended on the scene stated that Mr. Sparks was driving the vehicle. Ms. Parks was shown, a show-up was conducted with Ms. Parks, but she was unable to identify any of the suspects as the 2 men who had robbed her. Based on Mr. Sparks' cell phone being in the car, however, and him being on the scene and running, he was charged with the charges on the calendar. However, due to a lack of evidence, the state was unable to prove those charges, Judge. So the state has elected to proceed on a death by receiving charge only for Mr. Sparks. There were no cell phone records putting him in the area. There was no witness ID. The car was tested for DNA and fingerprints. There was none found. The weapon wasn't located, so we didn't have the evidence to prove an armed robbery in this case. So that's why we have downgraded the charge to theft by receiving. And I did explain that to Ms. Parks. There was another co-defendant in this case. He also pled prior to Mr. Sparks.
All right, Ms. Parks, please tell me what you would like to tell me.
I don't think I have anything to tell you, Judge. You know, this was a traumatic day in the lives of myself and my son, who were playing on the playground on a Saturday afternoon. And it, you know, that memory will be with me forever.
But nothing is going to minimize what has happened to you. Obviously, it was horrifically terrible for you and your son to have to go through this. Do you understand why the state is doing what it's doing?
I do believe I understand why it's doing what it's doing, yes.
And you're okay with this?
I'm okay with it.
All right, I want you to understand that nobody's minimizing the traumatic events that happened to you and your son, or minimizing it. You understand that?
Yes, sir.
All right, good luck to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Parks.
Okay.
All right,
Mrs.
we're gonna have to break after this till 1 o'clock, but let's proceed with this. Please
Yes.
proceed.
Judge, I have someone in the wait. I have a case in the room right now.
Wait, you have one person holding?
I have an attorney and their client in the waiting room.
On this
Okay.
case or another case?
The case right after this one.
Okay, please proceed on this case.
Thank you, Judge. Mr. Sparks, are you ready?
Yes, ma'am.
Please state your true and legal name.
Michael Wilbur Sparks, Jr.,
Can you spell your middle name, please?
Wilbur.
Are you at this time taking or under the influence of any alcohol, drugs, or medicine?
No, ma'am.
Is there any medication that you normally take that you haven't been given today?
No, ma'am.
How old are you?
16,
How far have you gone in school?
11th grade, still in.
Are you able to read, write, and understand English?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that you're being charged with 1 count of theft by receiving stolen property?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that you have the right to plead either guilty or not guilty to these charges?
Yes, ma'am.
You understand that if you plead not guilty or remain silent, you may receive a jury trial?
Yes, ma'am.
Have you had enough time to speak with your with your attorney, Ms. Holmes, about all the facts and circumstances known to you regarding the charge in this indictment?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you all also discuss potential defenses?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you need more time to discuss the case with your attorney?
No, ma'am.
Are you satisfied with her services?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you waive formal reading of the indictment?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you waive any and all defects in the indictment, including with respect to your name?
Yes, ma'am.
Were you arrested on these charges?
Yes, ma'am.
The state is unaware of any outstanding warrants related to these charges. Do you or your attorney know of any?
No, ma'am.
Has your attorney advised you as to the minimum and maximum sentence for the charge you're pleading to?
Yes, ma'am.
Theft by receiving is punishable from 1 to 10 years in prison. You understand that sentence?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that this is a negotiated plea of guilty?
Yes, ma'am.
That means that the state will recommend to the court a sentence of 2 years probation with the special condition that you complete high school or your GED, and that you complete 40 hours of community service.
Yes, ma'am.
You understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
You understand that the court does not have to accept this recommendation?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that this sentence or this plea may be used to enhance sentencing or future convictions if you have any?
Yes, ma'am.
And that goes for this jurisdiction as well as outside jurisdictions.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that if you're currently on probation or parole, your probation or parole may be revoked based on you entering a plea of guilty today?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that if you're placed on probation of any kind, you cannot violate any criminal laws of any governmental unit or any special conditions of probation without being subject to having the balance revoked?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that you're not allowed to use or possess a firearm while you're on probation?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that if you're not a United States citizen, a guilty plea conviction will affect your immigration status?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that there may be other adverse or unfavorable consequences as a result of this guilty plea conviction?
Yes, ma'am.
For example, your guilty plea may affect your right to vote, the right to hold public office, the right to serve on a jury, the right to obtain a passport, the right to receive, possess, or transport a firearm, or the ability to obtain employment. Do you understand these rights?
Yes, ma'am.
And you understand that they may be impacted by you pleading guilty today?
Yes, ma'am.
I do want to say that we are asking for first offender, whatever that's.
Thank you. Do you understand that by pleading guilty to a felony, if you use, receive, possess, or transport a firearm, you will be guilty of a felony, which may carry a sentence of 1 to 15 years in prison?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you asking to be treated as a first offender under the provisions of the First Offender Act?
Yes, ma'am.
Have you ever pleaded guilty or no contest to, or ever been convicted of a felony in Georgia?
No, ma'am.
Have you ever pleaded guilty or no contest to, or ever been convicted of a felony in any other jurisdiction?
No, ma'am.
Have you ever been sentenced for any crime, felony, or misdemeanor under the First Offender Act?
No, ma'am.
Has your lawyer explained First Offender Act to you?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that if you violate the terms of your first offender sentence or commit a new offense while on first offender probation, your first offender status could be revoked, you could be adjudicated guilty, and you could be resentenced up to the maximum sentence for each charge in this indictment?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that you waive any and all defenses, including with respect to your mental health, by entering a plea of guilty?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that if you went to trial, you would have had certain rights which you are giving up today?
Yes, ma'am.
Those rights include the right to a trial by jury, the right to remain silent, the right to confront witnesses, the right to the assistance of counsel, the right to the presumption of innocence, the right to testify, the right to subpoena witnesses, the right to have the charges against you proved beyond a reasonable doubt, the right to appeal if convicted of these charges after a trial. You understand these rights?
Yes, ma'am.
And you understand that you've given them up by pleading guilty today?
Yes, ma'am.
Has anyone forced, threatened, or promised you anything to get you to enter into a guilty plea?
No, ma'am.
Is your decision to waive your rights and enter a guilty plea because you are in fact guilty?
Can you explain it?
Okay, are you giving up your rights to a trial and entering a guilty plea because you are in fact guilty?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
How do you plead to the charge of theft by receiving in indictment number 19 SC 170064?
Yes, ma'am.
How do you plead?
Guilty.
Is this guilty plea freely and voluntarily given with full knowledge of the charge against you?
Can you explain it?
Yes. So are you freely entering into this plea, meaning is this your own decision to enter into this plea, or is somebody trying to force you to plea?
Yes, ma'am. It's my own decision.
Okay. And you understand the charge that you're facing and the sentence you could be facing?
Yes, ma'am.
And you understand first offender?
Yes, ma'am.
And you understand that if you get in trouble, if you get arrested or catch a new case while you're on first offender, your first offender status could go away and you'll be facing 10 years for this case.
And it's returnable to this division.
Yes, ma'am.
So you will go back before the same judge if you pick up a new offense. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Do you have any other questions?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so is this guilty plea freely and voluntarily given with full knowledge of the charges against you?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that you may only have a limited right to appeal this guilty plea conviction?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that you only have 4 years from today for a felony and 12 months from today for a misdemeanor to file a habeas corpus petition challenging whether this plea was voluntary?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Judge, the state notes that Mr. Sparks has no prior felony convictions and no misdemeanor violations, Judge. We did already read the facts into the record, so nothing further from the state.
Mr. Sparks, I want you to listen to Miss Singleton about how many people go to prison being around the wrong people, the wrong place, wrong time, didn't know how somebody was going to act, didn't know how somebody was going to react. And you've gotten a huge break here. Miss Singleton, please explain to Mr. Sparks how very fortunate he is.
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Sparks and I have had a conversation about this last week as well, that a lot of kids his age are in prison. A lot of them have been sent to the YDC for this same type of situation, even without a weapon being found, without a lot of things being in place, and that he's very, very fortunate, and he needs to make better decisions. He has a very involved father, and he needs to be making better decisions about what he's doing with his future. He's done very well at the GED program that he's been in, and he needs to finish that, Your Honor. He needs to finish that.
Sparks, what is your birthday?
July the 23rd, 2003.
Okay, and do you realize that you could be in prison for a minimum of 10 years to serve every day for these offenses?
Yes, sir.
And you understand if you went to the YDC until you're 17, you would then be transferred to adult prison?
Yes, sir.
And it's up to you to determine whether or not you're going to change your life today.
Yes, sir.
And you need to thank Ms. Holmes, your attorney, and Ms. Singleton for their
Thank you all.
guidance. And you need to be very thankful to your family for all of the support and love and care and concern they have for you.
Yes, sir.
All right, breaks like this don't come along every day. Do you understand that, sir?
Yes, sir.
Do you understand the nature of the charges against you?
Yes, sir.
You understand all the rights you're giving up?
Yes, sir.
You're giving up all those rights freely and voluntarily, knowingly and intelligently.
Yes, sir.
And you're entering this plea freely and voluntarily.
Yes, sir.
You're pleading to the charges because you're in fact guilty.
Yes, sir.
Is counsel satisfied that your client is competent in understanding the plea is voluntary and there is a factual basis?
Yes, Your Honor.
I find the defendant's competent to enter the plea. I find the plea is voluntary with full knowledge of all the rights that he's waiving. I will accept the plea. I find there is a factual basis. I will sentence as enunciated by the state and agreed to by the defense in the negotiated plea. It'll be returnable to this division, to this particular judge, no matter whether this court is involved in another division of the Superior Court of Fulton County. You understand that, Mr. Sparks?
Yes, sir.
All right. Good luck to you. Miss Woods, let me have the case involving the attorney in waiting, please, before we break.
Judge, one more thing, Your Honor. We are asking for this under first offender, and I have sent an order for already to Ms. Woods to restrict it and seal it at the time of sentencing. As my understanding, the state does not have any objection. I would just ask for it to go ahead and be restricted and sealed at this time.
Your Honor, I'm sorry, before Ms. Holmes, I didn't even think about that you would be doing that so quickly. We do have a little situation with warrants still being outstanding on old cases. There has been a process being put in place with Judge Millender just for SB 440s overall. I would just request that Mr. Sparks' case not be sealed yet, because if he is one of them, I can't get the warrant off the system, and it would be the old warrant. I just need to confirm that he does not have a warrant out there. If we could wait a week or two.
You've made that request, Ms. Holmes. Ms. Singleton, if you'll communicate to Ms. Woods when it's appropriate to seal that, we would follow your direction.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank
Okay.
you.
Is that it, Ms. Singleton?
Yes.
Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Holmes.
All right. Thank y'all.
Moment, Mr. Sparks. Mr. Sparks, can I get an address for you and a good telephone number?
601 Amal Drive, Southwest 30315 and 404-979-0301.
Say your number one more time.
Phone number
Yes.
404-979-0301. And for the address, Building 56. And can I put my mom number down there too?
Please.
It's 678. I mean, it's 404-438-6930.
And our victim's still on?
What's your mother's name?
Latanya Parham.
Yes, we're here.
I want to wish you the best and God bless you, okay?
Thank you. You too.
Thank you.
And the same.
Your excuse. Thank you. All right, let me have the case for the lawyer in waiting.
Okay. Judge, real quick, Ms. Chenault, what charges did you null pros in that case?
Yes, so hijacking is going to be reduced to a theft by receiving, and that's under OCGA 16-8-7, and all the other charges.
16-8 what now?
7A.
Okay. All right.
Which is the case, the lawyer's in waiting, and then we'll break.
Miss Woods? Miss Woods?
Yes.
Is there, could you just tell me if there's a Keelan Johnson or Lyndon Johnson in the waiting room?
There he is.
Okay. Those are my clients. When should I tell them to?
Hold on, I'm moving people. I'm bringing Miss Sandra in, and I'm assuming light skin. It's Nicole John. We'll find out. I guess I would say we're supposed to start back up at 1. I would probably say 1:30. Judge, is that correct?
Say that again, Miss April.
Who am I speaking to right now?
This is Dallin here.
Okay, all right. Ms. Wolf, Mr. Harold, we need to be able to see you.
Yes, ma'am. One moment. Yes, ma'am.
Are we?
Did start meeting?
Wait a minute, I have that indictment. I don't even.
Back now. Tell me about the case where the lawyer.
Just real quick, we Dallin Harold is before you. That's Ms. Wolf's case.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Happy Mother's Day, belated.
Thank you. All right, what are we doing, Miss Wolf? Is this the one you were waiting on?
Yes, Judge. He's a non-negotiated plea. We were kind of close in reference to what we wanted, but not exactly.
Tell me what the request is, Miss Chenault. Please.
Yes, Judge. The state's offer is 5 years, served 6 months with a balance on probation.
What is the request of the defense?
We're asking for a straight 3 years probation. I believe he's done about 42 days in jail. I think
45.
well, I'll have to check the system.
Does he have a record, Miss Chenault?
1 second, Judge. I don't think he did. No prior felony convictions, Judge.
Miss Sherry,
I didn't hear you, Judge.
have you spoken to the victim?
Yes, we have. Is the victim present, Ms. Sherry?
I don't think you can hear us. Can you hear us?
Blake, are you on?
Yes, I'm on.
Is the victim present?
I'm sorry, which defendant is this? I'm sorry.
Harold, Dallin Keith Harold.
Harold. I don't believe so.
Okay.
Let me ask you this, Miss Wolf. How do they know each other?
But let me, Judge, if I may.
You may.
She's not present, but in the past, she has communicated that she doesn't want the case dropped and that she did want him to receive jail time.
All right, let's do this. Well, over the break, let's see if we can get her to join the call. Okay, that'll be very helpful. I will be back at 1 o'clock. Thank you.
Mr. Harrell, do you have work today at 12:30?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so will we start at 1?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Judge.
Thank
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
See you all at 1 o'clock.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
You did good. I just have your back. You know that.